All right. My wife's still trying to get me to sign the post-nup back there. She's tough. She's tough. Well, our next speaker is very impressive. I had the chance to sit with her backstage and talk with her a little bit. And she has some pretty good advice. Her motto is, sleep your way to the top. Literally. I'm not kidding. She is the media mogul behind the Huffington Post empire. She has shattered plenty of glass ceilings through her career. And she was named to the Forbes Most Influential Women in Media list. She's redefining success in many ways. And today she's going to share with us her tips on building habits that will allow you to thrive. Let's take a look. Ladies and gentlemen, Arianna Huffington.
Thank you so much. It's really great to be here because you are the foundation of this country, the foundation of our economy. And I love the way Intuit started. I love the idea that by running our finances and running the financial side of business easier, we can concentrate on what we love and we can concentrate on building. I absolutely love that principle. And I asked Scott Cook backstage how come he called it Intuit. And it's intuitive. He called it Intuit because he wants to make the software more and more intuitive so we're not overwhelmed by it. And I love that because I feel the more intuitive we make everything and the more we tap into our own intuition and wisdom, the more effective we're going to be. But, you know, we all have something that we don't like about ourselves, right? Something we find difficult, something we find challenging. For me, for years, it has been my accent. I don't know if you've heard me before, but this accent is for real. It used to be the bane of my existence. I tried to change it. And then finally, I met Henry Kissinger. And he said to me, don't worry about your accent. In American public life, you can never overestimate the advantages of complete and total incomprehensibility. So I want to talk to you about how can we simplify our lives as small business people so that we don't need the unnecessary stress and burnout that so many people mistakenly think is the fuel of success. So I'm here to tell you that we are living at this amazing time in history when all the new scientific findings validate the ancient wisdom that, in fact, we are more effective and more productive and more creative when we get enough sleep, when we have renewal breaks, when we take some time off for ourselves, when, as they say on aeroplanes, you put your own oxygen mask first. And I came to this conclusion the hard way. 7 years ago, while I was building my own small business, the Huffington Post, which started with 5 people in 2005, so by 2007, I was trying to do it the way that our culture makes us believe we have to do it, by staying up all night, by exhausting myself. I also had 2 daughters. I was a single mother, so managing all that. The women here understand, right? So in April 2007, I collapsed, literally. That's how Thrive, my book, starts with that scene of me collapsing, hitting my head on my desk, breaking my cheekbone, getting 4 stitches on my right eye. And that started my journey of asking the big questions. What is success? Because our culture has shrunken the definition of success down to these 2 metrics of money and power. And this is like trying to sit on a 2-legged stool. Sooner or later, you fall off. you need the third leg of the stool. And that consists of these 4 pillars. First of all, well-being. You know, nothing is worth sacrificing our health for. And yet, look around. I'm sure you know somebody who has ended up with high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, something that was a stress-related disease. And do you know that 75% of our healthcare costs are because of stress-related diseases? And do you know, may I talk to the women in the room, do you know that women process stress worse than men? And women in stressful jobs, which I'm sure is everybody in this room and on this stage, have a 40% greater incidence of heart disease and a 60% greater incidence of diabetes. It's not worth it, ladies. We've got to do it a different way. You know what? We need to lead the way of transforming the way we imagine work to be. And men are going to be incredibly grateful for that. So, some very small tips. In Thrive, I have 12 steps. I deliberately picked 12 steps. Anybody here in AA? Because we are addicted to the current way of living through burnout and stress. I'm not going to walk you through all the 12 steps, but let me remind you, because I know there are a lot of A types in this room, don't try and do all 12 steps at once. Pick one that really resonates with you to start with. And I'm going to walk you through 3 of them. The first one is very simple. Unless you are one of the very, very smart people in this country who get all the sleep they need, start by getting 30 more minutes a night than you're getting now. Anybody can do that. All you may have to avoid is watching Jon Stewart for a night. Or if you're tempted to binge watch, say, House of Cards, you can get a sleep sponsor and call them up and say, hey, I'm really tempted to binge watch House of Cards. And they'll talk you down. And, you know, if you don't get enough sleep, try and get a nap. You know, I was backstage, and Mark Andreessen said to me that he's a regular napper. I said, can I out you as a napper? And he said, yes, you can out me. And Scott Cook is a napper. So, you know, a lot of super successful men and women are nappers. You know, Winston Churchill came up with the term power nap. At the Huffington Post, we have 2 nap rooms. And at first, people said, who is going to be seen walking into a nap room in the middle of a newsroom in the middle of New York City, the city that never sleeps? And now the nap rooms are perpetually full. I must say, the other day I was going by one of them and I saw 2 people coming out of it. And I thought to myself, whatever it takes to recharge you. Just don't tell HR, okay? So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is super simple, but hard for a lot of the type A people in this room. At the end of the day, pick a time when you turn off all your devices and gently escort them out of your bedroom. Do not charge your smartphones by your bed. Read the science. I have 55 pages of scientific endnotes in Thrive because I want to convince the most stubborn skeptic that what I'm saying is not some new agey, flaky California stuff. It's grounded in science. If you wake up in the middle of the night and your smartphone is charging by your bed, you are going to be tempted to look at your data, right? And if you look at your data, it means you've allowed your day life to intrude into your night life, which is your time to recharge. And when you recharge, then you're going to wake up and you're going to be ready to take on the world. You're going to be ready to face any challenge that comes up. And isn't that the place from which the best ideas come? As a small business owner, isn't that the place from which you can create, you can face any obstacles, you don't get discouraged, you are completely resilient? So why not give that to ourselves? The third step is very connected to the whole foundation of Intuit, which is about simplifying. And this is, we all start a lot of projects in our heads that we never complete and very often never really start in life. So I've discovered how liberating it is to realize that you can actually complete a project by dropping it. Look at all, do a mini life audit. Look at all the projects you start in your head. I did that regularly. And I came up, for example, with a recognition that even though I would love to become a good skier, I'm a lousy skier, I'm not really going to invest the time and energy to becoming a good skier. So, as far as I'm concerned, skiing is done. I completed skiing by dropping it. And now when I go skiing with my daughters, I sit by the fire, I drink hot chocolate, and I read a good book. So just look at your list of projects and decide what are the things that you are really going to invest in, that you are really going to invest your time, your resources, your attention, and drop the rest. And that is connected, when I say devote your attention, that is connected to one of the major problems in our culture at the moment, which is our hyperconnectivity to technology. You know, technology can help liberate us, and that's one of the things that QuickBooks has done for small businesses, or technology can enslave us if we feel that we have to be always connected. And increasingly, you know, people have thought that by multitasking, they're going to be more productive. Well, new science shows that there is no such thing as multitasking. It's actually task switching. And it's the most stressful thing you can do. And yet, look around. I live in New York City. You walk around the streets of New York, you hardly see anybody who is not talking on the phone while walking, or worse, texting while walking. And they expect you to get out of their way, because clearly, if you're not texting while walking, you're not as important as they are, because you can afford to just walk. And you know how people wear being busy like a badge of honor? It's like I no longer use that term. People would ask me, how are you? And I would say, I'm busy. So, tell us more. And when I stopped multitasking while I was walking, I started noticing things. Like a beautiful building by my apartment. I remember telling a friend, this is such a beautiful building. When did it go up? And she said, 1890. So what else are we missing? And talking about intuition, you know, when you are hiring for your business, what are you missing in the interview, in the conversation? Bill Clinton, I quote him in the book, saying, the most important mistakes I made when I was tired. I can totally identify. The most important mistakes I made, including hiring mistakes, is when I ignored the red flags, when I just wanted to cross this off my to-do list and ignored my own intuition. The same when you talk to your children and you're trying to multitask, or your mind is somewhere else and you're missing what they're really telling you or not telling you. So the more present we can be, the more connected we can be with our own intuition and our own wisdom, the more effective we are going to be in every aspect of our life. So we talked about well-being, wisdom, wonder. And giving, we heard a lot today about giving here. And Intuit, of course, is famous for its giving practices, encouraging employees to give. But in fact, in our daily lives, when we make personal connections with people that otherwise we might take for granted, like the barista in the coffee shop or the housing crew in our office, we make ourselves much more present, much more abundant, and much more connected with our lives. And when we disconnect from technology and reconnect with ourselves, we are much more effective at everything we are doing when we reconnect. And more businesses are beginning to realize that. And not just in the States, all across the world. The Huffington Post is now in 11 countries, and in every country we go, I find out what are they doing in this area. Germany is kind of ahead of us. Volkswagen, for example, gives its employees company phones which are automatically turned off at 6 p.m. and turned on at 7 a.m. They want them to have predictable time off. And don't we all need that? It goes a long way back. Remember God? He created heaven and earth. It took him 6 days. It was a lot of hard work. And then he took the seventh day off. Completely. And if you want a more modern example, here in, not too far from here, at Cisco, Padma Sri Warrior, she's the Chief Technology Officer of Cisco. She came to speak at our Thrive conference recently. And she said, I sleep for 8 hours, I meditate, I do haikus, and every Saturday I do a digital detox. And I thought to myself, if God and the CTO of Cisco can do a detox for a whole day, so can I. So we're now seeing new models emerging because we're at this amazing turning point when we're realizing that the collective delusion that burnout is the way to success is actually hurting us. It's hurting our health, it's hurting our relationships, and it's hurting the bottom line of businesses because we're making bad decisions. And so we need to change that. And little by little, it's changing. But you here have the power to accelerate this global shift. 2013 was the year when CEOs started coming out not as being gay, but as being meditators. Like Ray Dalio, the founder of Bridgewater, the biggest hedge fund, told the world that he's been meditating for 45 years. Mark Benioff, CEO of Salesforce, 25 years. Suddenly, meditation, renewal breaks were no longer seen as fit only for people who wanted to go chill out under a mango tree. They became performance enhancement tools. And that's why athletes are incorporating them in their coaching. I had a conversation with Kobe Bryant for the New York Times recently, and he talked about how he's learned to appreciate the importance of sleep, of meditation. It makes him better on the field. Phil Jackson, the coach, has made mindfulness training mandatory for the Knicks in New York because he said if they get a bad call from the referee, I don't want them to keep holding on to this. I want them to be able to let it go and move on with the game. And it's the same in life. If I can wrap up, because unfortunately I'm running out of time, that's the same metaphor in life. We get bad calls from referees in our lives. The question is, can we just let it go and move on to the next moment? Or do we need to carry that with us? That judgment about the past or the negative fantasy about the future? Or can we live our lives from a place of trust? As Rumi, the poet, said, live life as though everything is rigged in your favor. No matter what happens. Remember, it's rigged in your favor. You may not know how, but there is a hidden blessing there. And I can tell you from my own life, and if you look back at your life, I'm sure there are many things that happened that you wish had gone a different way, that when you look back, you're glad they went the way they did. So everything I've said is going to make us more effective at our jobs and at running our businesses. But it will also make us realize that we are more than our jobs. When I was being interviewed by Oprah for Thrive, she asked me, as she asks everybody the same question, what do you know for sure? And I said, what I know for sure is that your job, Oprah, however magnificent it is, or my job, however great it is, or anybody's job here, however fantastic, is not as magnificent as who we are as human beings. And when we remember that, we can live our lives and run our businesses with less worry, less stress, more gratitude, more joy, and yes, more sleep. Thank you.